Hey, it is Wednesday the 8th. We're going to be finishing up looking at our last four amendments, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th Amendment. I'm going to be starting with Paige, who's going to share her poster here, and then I'll have Sydney right after her. Same format as we've done since Monday. I'm going to share mine after our presenters have shared theirs and just get notes over mine. But here we go, start with Paige.
The Seventh Amendment, trial by jury. What it says: in suits at common law where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no facts tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States than according to the rules of the common law. This amendment's objective was to preserve a distinction between the responsibilities of the courts and the duties of the juries. The court's duties include deciding matters of law. The jury's duties include deciding matters of facts. The Supreme Court case. Columbia Pictures terminated agreements which licensed several TV series to 3 TV stations owned by a Mr. Feltner because his payments became delinquent. Feltner continued to broadcast programs. Columbia won partial summary judgment. Justice Clarence Thomas said that the Seventh Amendment gives right to a jury trial to determine amount of statutory damages.
All right, good job, Paige. Now I'm going to show you Sydney's, and Sydney's going to be sharing hers out. Here we go with Sydney.
I have the Seventh Amendment, and the Seventh Amendment says, in suits at common law where the value of controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of the United States, then according to the rules of the common law. What right does it give you? It gives citizens the right to settle disagreements between people and businesses and federal court. The lawsuit has to be more for $20, and once it's tried, it can't be retried. Example of it is Felter versus Columbia Pictures Television Incorporated. Columbia Pictures terminated several shows they sold to Felter's television stations. Felter's stations didn't stop televising these shows, so Columbia Pictures sued them. After he got sued, Feltner tried to go to court, but the district court denied him because of the Seventh Amendment.
All right, nice job, ladies. So our Seventh Amendment, we scroll down to it. Here's what our Seventh Amendment is going to do. It kind of relates back to our Sixth Amendment. So Sixth Amendment was looking at criminal trials. Seventh Amendment is looking at our civil trials. So Seventh Amendment guarantees the right to a speedy civil trial. So it does the same as the last, except the Sixth Amendment, was looking at criminal trials. And I'm going to explain the difference right here, actually, in those two. So here's the big difference between civil trials from criminal trials. So civil trial is whenever someone sues another person. So maybe I'm suing Mr. Morrison because he baked a cake, it got me sick, and now I want my money back. So that would be an example of a civil trial. Especially if the cake costs more than $20. That's where we can have a civil trial. And a criminal trial is the opposite. It's whenever a state tries to convict a person of a crime. So it would be like me versus the state of Missouri. So let's say I try to break into the Missouri headquarters for the governor's mansion because I just don't like him. Well, when I'm arrested for that, the state of Missouri will charge me for criminally breaking into the governor's mansion, for example. So Amendment 6 focuses on criminal trials, where Amendment 7 is focusing on civil trials, so trials between people. So in the case of the trial that they both gave, their example was looking at a Paramount versus the specific person who made a TV show. Paramount probably had a contract to show this show on TV and took it down without letting the owner know or giving the owner compensation, and that's why they went to court. All right. Again, go back and pause that if you need to get those notes, but I'm going to move on to Cole, who has the Eighth Amendment, looking at cruel and unusual punishments.
The Eighth Amendment, Cruel and Unusual Punishment by Cole Adair. And before we begin, I'd like to apologize if you hear any of my sisters in the background. Thank you. What the Eighth Amendment actually says. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. What the Eighth Amendment actually means. The Eighth Amendment protects citizens from the federal government from enforcing excessive bail, excessive fines, or cruel and unusual punishment. A time the Eighth Amendment was violated. Albert Trapp, an American citizen, decided to quit his military service while he was on a mission in Morocco. Years later, his application for a U.S. passport was denied. According to the Nationality Act of 1940, deserting the military service would automatically lose your citizenship. However, this punishment was rejected by the Supreme Court, mainly because it amounted to the complete destruction of a person, which is a clear violation of the Eighth Amendment. This case is commonly known as Trapp v. Dulles, 1958. Thank you.
Nice job with your arrow there, Cole. So, looking at our Eighth Amendment, it's pretty straightforward. Basically, our Eighth Amendment just says that you are guaranteed and protected from cruel and unusual punishments. So, anytime you are sent to prison, you are not going to be hurt while in prison by the system. That's different. It may be actual prisoners that hurt you, but you cannot be tortured and beaten and like electrocuted and stuff in prison to give out information. That's not going to happen. That's unconstitutional. Some states argue they've banned the electric chair, for example, because they see that as a cruel and unusual like form of execution. So that's why you don't really see electric chairs anymore, because it's a pretty painful death. Also, tying into this Eighth Amendment, fines. You can't be fined something insane. So if I get pulled over speeding, I don't owe $7.9 billion for speeding ticket. No, that's an extraordinarily large fine. It's unfair. So it's an unusual or it's a cruel punishment. So that all falls under your Eighth Amendment, treating people fairly and good. Pause here if you need to get these notes, but I'm going to continue on to our next one.
The Ninth Amendment, Unenumerated Rights, by Aidan Herrard. The Ninth Amendment and what it actually says. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. What rights does the Ninth Amendment protect? The Ninth Amendment protects all of the rights that are not included in the Constitution. One example may be the right to marry or not marry. Another example may be the right to choose and follow a profession. Neither of these are listed in the Constitution itself, but still exist as rights of the American people. Griswold v. Connecticut, 1965. In this case, Griswold and her associate were fined $100 because they were supplying birth control to married couples. This was illegal at the time. It violated the First, Third, Fourth, Fifth, and Ninth Amendment because the Constitution protects the right of privacy. This case broke the Ninth Amendment because it broke the right of privacy in marriage. This possibly could have been the case that overturned the law of banned birth control in Connecticut. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Forgot to change slides here if you want to read that or read through that yourself. But moving on. Good job, Aiden. Nicely done. So looking at our Ninth Amendment. Ninth Amendment can be a little bit confusing, but all it's really saying is all rights not clearly stated in the Constitution or not forbidden in the Constitution belong to the people. So Aiden has some great examples there. Looking at the right to marry, for example. You have the right to either get married or not. You don't have to do either one. You can't be forced to do either. And specifically, the Ninth Amendment really is looking at this means the states have certain freedoms, or us, the people, have certain freedoms, such as voting and making laws. So if the Constitution doesn't forbid it, we have the right to create it. So here is kind of where people argue marijuana laws, for example. It doesn't say in the Constitution that you cannot take certain drugs, such as marijuana, or drink alcohol. So that's where people argue they have the right to buy marijuana. And that's also where we'll connect to the 10th Amendment. So really the 9th Amendment really focuses on people, so individuals, And our 10th is going to look more at states. So pause here if you need to write that down, but I'm going to continue on to our last one. And our last one is Ed with the 10th Amendment. And the 10th Amendment says that the power not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited by it to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. What a 10th Amendment protects? It protects Americans from big, intrusive federal government actions. The heart of the 10th Amendment is that the federal government has only those powers listed in the Constitution, and all other powers are reserved to the states and to the people, and therefore denied to the federal government. An example of a Supreme Court case is it constitutional for the president to order the stay-at-home order? Well, if we look at the Constitution, it says that the 10th Amendment protects all Americans from intrusive federal government action. All right, let's vote on it. All in favor of yes, it is constitutional, press your button. All in favor of no, it's not constitutional, press your button. Now I will tally the votes. The final ruling is that yes, it is constitutional because it is for the betterment of society. Good point. Nice job. All right, so our 10th Amendment, last one, straightforward. Really looking at any powers not clearly stated in the Constitution or granted to the federal government belong to states and the people. So we, the people, live in states. So really the 9th and 10th Amendments tied together. The 9th really looks more at individuals. Anything not clearly stated about individual belongs to us, the people. Whereas the 10th Amendment gives states similar power as people. So here again is where the marijuana laws come in. The Constitution does not clearly state anything about marijuana. So that's where states argue. They have the right to make their own laws, whether they want to sell, or ban marijuana. So that's kind of where the debate is. When we eventually have a national debate, there would be most likely a constitutional amendment that would then legalize marijuana across the United States. But until then, that's why we have such differences across the states. Some have it legal, others have it illegal. So that's kind of where it goes. All right. So later today, you got a Zoom yesterday in your email. Yet later today, we're going to have a little meeting starting at 12:45 until about 1:30. And really, it's not like we're going to get new notes or anything there. We're just going to have a discussion about our 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights. And our special speaker, Mr. Madigan, is going to be there, as he used to be a lawyer. So he's going to talk about some things that he experienced. And really, this is an opportunity for you to bring questions. Think of what are some things you're curious about. I have the form that we've been filling in with questions I'll use as a starting point. But really write down some good questions you have now that you want to bring up. And this is one thing I love doing every year, is having these conversations. So look forward to seeing you at 12:45, and I'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye.